Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to cover how you can win money and place higher in tournaments. I'm going to focus mainly on the solo cash cups, but a lot of what I talk about will apply to trios as well. For those of you out of the loop, Epic has been hosting what they call cash cups every single week. Each Wednesday, there's the Contender Cash Cup, which anyone in Contenders League and above can play in, and on Thursday, there's the Champion Cash Cup, which you need to be in Champion League to play in. There's also a Trio Cash Cup every Friday, and the Fortnite Championship Series for trios every weekend. The way the solo cups work is you get 4 hours to play at most 15 games, and then the person with the most points from both kills and placement wins the whole thing. The crazy part is that this is all done online, it's open to really anyone half decent, and you can make some serious money by placing well. So how can we start winning and finishing at the top in these cash cups? After watching a ton of different players either do really well or do really poorly in these cups, I think I've figured out some of the most important tips to find success. To help you guys understand and to demonstrate them, we'll be analyzing 2 of the top performing solo players, TSM ZexRow and RS ClarityG. Just 2 weeks ago, ZexRow won the Contender Cash Cup, and Clarity came second in the Champion Cash Cup. Both of them have also been consistently finishing in or just outside of the money in every other Cash Cup. That kind of consistency tells us that there's a method to the madness. As much as we all complain about RNG and solos being impossible to consistently do well in, ZexRow and Clarity prove us wrong. So with that being said, let's dive into what I learned from watching them that will help us place higher in these cash cups. Maybe the most important thing I took away from their tournament runs was how crucial not tilting was. Tilting refers to when you get frustrated from something that happens in game, and that causes you to make mistakes while you play, which only makes you more frustrated and causes you to make even more mistakes. Once you start tilting in these solo tournaments, it's over. You honestly might as well stop playing at that point, because unless you're able to calm yourself down, there's no way you do well. You'll start dying off spawn and making stupid plays, which will end up in you getting 0 points and running out of games. The reason Clarity's done so well in these tournaments is because he's straight up untiltable. I'm not even kidding. Every time he dies, whether it be from something that was his fault or some ridiculous form of RNG, he never lets it get to him. He always takes responsibility for his death, no matter what the circumstances behind it were. And that's really the biggest part of why he doesn't tilt. When you're able to review your death and logically look at the reasons behind it, you'll start to hold yourself more accountable. The problem is when you start to blame other factors like getting unlucky and turning your anger towards the game. This is the much easier path to take because you're letting yourself off the hook. In the long run though, it's solely the reason why you tilt and can't perform well. In all honesty, I'd say about 95% of the time or even more, the reason you died was because you made a mistake. Some things that I hear and see way too often are, "Oh, I got third partied, nothing I could do there." Well, you took a mid-game fight when you probably didn't need to and attracted attention. Why was the fight taken? Did you rotate too late? Did you use a bad rotation path? Did you push for no reason? Did you take too long to finish the fight? These are all things you need to ask yourself after you die, because I can guarantee you one of them is the real reason you died. Another one I hear a lot is, "I had such bad RNG today. I had no mobility or shotguns in any game." The real reason is you probably did not land at a high risk, high reward POI. Some people moan about not getting good loot when they land at a house edge map with 2 chests. What do you expect to get there? This is the kind of thought process you should have after every time you die. Think back to each decision you made from the start of the game and how it affected you. Then own up to it and just accept that you were the only person responsible for your death. Of course, there will be times where you'll get heavy sniped in the face from 200 meters away. I can sit here and say, "Oh, you shouldn't have been running or jumping the way you were." But let's be real, there's nothing you could do about that. Remember though, those situations are extremely rare. The more often you tell yourself you're getting unlucky, the more you'll feel like you're not able to control the game. You'll start to believe that nothing is going your way, and you'll let the tilt take over. Please do not let that happen in these tournaments. The other aspect of not tilting, which a Redditor by the name of Reese Hub pointed out, is having enough mental energy to play well for 4 hours. That's a long time to be in the zone and trying your hardest not to tilt. You'll start to notice that after your 5th or 6th game, it slowly becomes a battle of mental strength and fortitude more than anything else. That means if you're lacking sleep, you're not exercising, you eat bad food, overload yourself on caffeine, and don't drink enough water, you're just going to be in a worse mental state to stay positive. What you should do is get enough sleep at night, go outside, eat healthy, and drink plenty of water. Your body and mind will thank you later. And the best part is, you'll be more likely to play better and place higher in these cash cups. Another very important takeaway was to play around the Cash Cup format. ZexRow did this really well, which is why he won by a decently large margin. Now, the way the point system works is like this. Each elimination is worth 1 point. A victory royale is worth 10. 2nd through 5th place is worth 7. 6th through 15th is 5. And finally, 16th through 25th is 3 points. All of the placement points stack, so if you win, you'd really get 25 points total just from placement. With that point system in play, it's pretty evident that placement points are huge. There's not many players in the world who are capable of winning cash cups mainly from elimination points. The only player I can think to do that is KNG Unknown, who's one of the best and most aggressive players in the world. For everyone else though, placement points are the way to go. Both Clarity and ZexRow ended up having about 55 to 60% of their points coming from placement and the other 40% from eliminations. Most of those elims also came from their higher placement points games, as in ZexRow would win with 6 or more kills. And that makes sense because most of the fights and people you run into happen in the late game. Along with playing the format of each game well, you want to play the tournament format too. 4 hours is not enough time to play out the entire 15 games. With the queue times, you'd be lucky to play out 7 or 8 games fully. That's why you see ZexRow take what seem like stupid fights if he's supposed to be surviving till late game. He knows he has games to waste and throw away, so he tries to get as many kills as he can in as little time as possible. A smart strategy if you're running out of time is to go and fit in as many W key games as you can. Drop hot at tilted and try to rack up kill points. After that, make sure you have enough time to find a match, queue up, and try to time it so you get into a match just as the 4-hour time frame ends. As long as you're in the match, all the points will count, so for the last match, you want to play it out until the end game and maximize placement points. The last thing I learned and want to talk about is how important mobility is. You need mobility to win games and get placement points in the current meta. At the time I'm making this video, there are only 3 mobility items in the game: launch pads, shockwaves, and shield bubbles. That's really not a lot of things you can use to rotate, and this circles back to what I mentioned before. If you can't find mobility off spawn, you're probably landing too safe. Clarity lands at Happy Hamlet, which has some of the best loot in the game. The downside is that 2 or 3 people usually land with him, so either you split loot, or what usually happens is you fight in the early game. My advice would be to land somewhere with at least somewhat decent loot. Do not land at a random shack with 1 chest and expect to win the game. Well, what happens when you just can't find any mobility at all, even if you're at a good POI? You need to do what Reese calls an impact frag to gain mobility. This is where W keying or generally a more aggressive playstyle should be switched on in the mid game. In duos and trios, no mobility isn't as bad as you can just path into zone with double or triple the mats. In solos though, you'd be very lucky to path from the 4th to the final zone, so you'll need to get a kill for mobility during that time. I really do think that the risk of trying to fight one person mid game is less than trying to rotate against 30 people endgame with no mobility. This is something I also noticed Clarity did. Whenever he had good loot and good mobility, he'd avoid fights and go straight to zone to base up. When he had bad RNG and no mobility, he'd look to take fights and push people in the mid game. Remember boys, mobility should be your first priority in solos, so do whatever you have to do to get some. Overall, those were the most important tips for placing well in tournaments. If you're looking for a guide on how to play out the early, mid, and late game, I've made a ton of those for Arena, and this is basically the same thing, so go check that out if you need to. If this video helped you out though, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and to turn on post notifications. Shout out to everyone using code Jarian. The giveaway will begin Friday on my Twitter, so if you want to be one of the first people to enter, go follow my Twitter right now, @itsjarian. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.